discussed about supply chain management and what is customer relationship management and how are these two particular topics linked to one another. In chapter 3, we spoke all about logistic management and we had started discussing about chapter 5, that is recent trends in supply chain management. And we had seen some of the new developments that are happening in this particular area, that may be supply chain digitalization or supply chain, how it is moving towards cloud management. Now we also spoke about now the supply chains are becoming omni-channel, and we also spoke about how sustainability is becoming essential in the contemporary days. We saw how there is a growth in circular supply chain, and we also spoke about agile supply chain. Agile supply chains are nothing but the ones which can change according to the situation and yet to be better for the organization. Then we spoke about Internet of Things, we spoke about the big data analytics, we spoke about the artificial intelligence, we spoke about robotics and automation. All this, if you see, nothing but in a nutshell, if I have to tell, we can tell this, yes, supply chain is nothing but a part of marketing of an organization, but with development, especially in information technology, it is bringing a lot of changes in the way how this supply chains of any organization is being handled. And all those are nothing but the points that we separated and try to understand how it is bringing changes in the contemporary business modules. Then we spoke about the trends or changing the supply chain management in the recent days, that how it is how demand planning is beginning in the end of the cycle, that is to tell from the customer part how it is starting. Then we spoke about globalization or how increased competition and price pressures are there. We spoke about outsourcing. We also spoke about shortened and more complex product life cycle or the collaboration that happens between stakeholders in the extended supply chain. All these things we saw in detail. In our today's session, we shall see outsourcing and supply chain management. Now, outsourcing as a concept we have already discussed. Now, outsourcing in simple terms is nothing but the work that should have been done in-house shall be for a reason given to a third party. Now, the reason could be anything that are in favor of the organization. It can be maybe to reduce the cost, or it can also be even if the organization does not have the particular capacity to do a particular thing, they might have located a party who can do it for them. So, all this makes outsourcing. Now remember, outsourcing definitely is one of the important topic that you would study over your MBA course. So already we have done outsourcing. So in today we shall just briefly see about all these things. In third chapter, when we spoke about logistics, we spoke about outsourcing in a very, very detailed way. So, as we discussed earlier, outsourcing, it is nothing but a contracting. Contracting in which we contract out, our company's non-core or most of the times the non-revenue producing activities, especially to those who are experts in that field. Now remember one thing, outsourcing is very different from contracting. That is, outsourcing, it is always considered as strategic management tool, which might involve the restructuring of an organization around what it does best or its core competencies. So whenever we speak about this outsourcing, now it is mainly can be in two levels. That is, the organization can either outsource the process or the organization can either outsource the product. The product can be outsourced or the process can be outsourced. Now, as compared to that of when this outsourcing was introduced, here outsourcing nowadays it is not considered as a tactical option which might help a firm to its financial cost or financial front, what we can call it as. Now, it has come up as a strategic necessity when opportunities are offered at lower cost by countries. Now, these countries are nothing but countries like India or China or Mexico are the countries which take in a very high amount of outsourcing. So outsourcing it always allows faster turnaround of resources by allowing the companies to focus on their core competences, which in turn helps also in improving the overall health of an organization. And when we had discussed about this outsourcing, we also spoke about third party logistics, if we do remember. Now, you do know what is third party logistics? Now, if I have to give example of this third party logistic, there are quite a few logistics that are being used frequently. It can be the warehouse management, or it could be the shipment consolidation, or we have rate negotiation, we have order fulfillment, or we do have product assembly or product installation. All of this are some of the third party logistic. Now, this third party logistic, one more thing about this is that it is normally it can be considered in three different levels. That is to tell, when you either outsource a product or a process. Now, outsourcing can mainly happen in three different stages. It can happen in all the three stages or either of the stage or any one of the stage. Now, first one it is basic service providers. The second stage is called as value added service providers, and the last one they are called as logistic integrators. So, now speaking about this, basic service providers, here third party service providers, they can be something like traditional physical distribution services, like that of services provided by warehousing, or the services that are provided by order processing or even order picking, and also transportation. All these are the basic service provider. Now I have to transport my product, but somebody else is doing that for me. So that is also a third party logistic. So that is the basic. Excuse me. Or we have value added service provider. Now what happens under this value added service provider is that, now here those whom we call as third party service provider, they do provide the basic services along with the value added services, maybe like specialized pick and pack operations can be one of the best example. Now the third level is that whom we call as logistic integrators. Now third type or this third party provider, they are the ones who assume the full responsibility for managing key supply chain operations on a daily basis. Especially they do it under the client's supervision. So now that speaking so much about outsourcing, it is also better to know in very brief what the benefits of the outsourcing could be. Now definitely if at all this has worked out, it definitely does shows that there are some advantage of outsourcing a particular product or a particular process. That's why the businesses have accepted outsourcing and that's why we have development in outsourcing. Now some of the main benefits are that basically it helps to improve company to focus by eliminating all the internal function which can be considered as not core competences. That is to tell, if an organization is an organization which is based on science and technology, now that particular organization also does have financial and accounting to be maintained. Now their core competency would be in science and technology. So now this outsourcing is something which helps any organization to have attention on its core competences. That is to tell, they have to be very well in doing what their main activity is, and the sub activities or not so core competences they can outsource it to a third party. Now this outsourcing, it does helps to access world class capabilities and also new technologies. Since this third party logistic company, they are a result of extensive investment in technology, methodologies and also people. And this outsourcing, it helps in accelerating or re-engineering benefits, mainly because this third party logistic, it has already been re-engineered to world class standards, so that it is able to realize all those anticipated benefits as soon as possible. Now, one more thing about outsourcing is that in third party logistics, there can be sharing of the risk, especially across the many companies whose services it takes into consideration. Now this logistic, it also helps to to conserve capital, and also allows any organization to redirect all its resources from non-core activities towards core activities, and also greater return. Now it also helps in cash infusion, since sometimes outsourcing involves the transfer of assets from the company to
Third party logistics. Now, definitely, this outsourcing, it gives access to lower cost structure, which results in greater economy of scales for organization, and also there are some other advantage which can be based on the specialization of each organization. And also this outsourcing, it helps in arranging resources that are not very much available internally. And companies also, they less often agree to the fact that the outsourcing can be viewed as a way to eliminate labor problems also. Now, these might be some of the benefits of the organization, I mean outsourcing. Now, as we have these benefits, on the other hand, we also do have to face some of the risk when our organization decides to outsource. That is to tell, outsourcing always comes with the risk. In fact, it has been seen that benefits, or most of the times, something which can be visible or transparent, but with the risk, it is always hidden when we outsource. Now, some of the risks are, first one could be the cost of coordination. That is to tell, coordination cost typically increases when any logistic function of the organization is outsourced. There can be loss of internal logistic management capability. That is to tell, third party logistic companies management team, they must always have knowledge and also expertise generated on the day to day operations. And there shall always be a reduced contact with the final customer. That is to tell, company might lose direct contact with the end customer. And there is a biased choice of service provider. That is to tell, there can be some pressure by the main company or the parent company of the third party logistic, especially to give a portion of the business, or even when it is not competitive maybe, or there may be loss of voice in public policy issue. That is to tell, there are threats of some legislation that it will affect the warehousing and also maybe the trucking. Also, the company will not be able to represent those interests, since these functions shall be performed by outsider. And mainly, the risk is that the data, or above the data, now sensitive data and information. There are chances that the third party logistics have access to a lot of information that might be valuable to competitors, by leaving the company always in a vulnerable stage. Now, these are some of the risks that can be pointed out. Along with that, we do have some of the issues with outsourcing. Now this is to tell that the decision that our organization does, where it tells that it is going to outsource. Normally, this decision, it originates at the top of the organizational chart. So the third party logistic companies have had growth rates of maybe over 100%, as one of the studies shows, especially in US during 2015 maybe. So that kind of growth, it might not be possible to maintain the same in today's day. So a large portion of this growth is definitely not from new clients, but it can only happen with the existing relationship that the outsourcing companies are having with the clients, which they want to extend the scope of the services that they provide. So this trend towards an integrated logistic function is what will most likely generate the future business for all these outsourcing companies. Then we have some of the challenges that are to be faced when an organization decides to outsource. That is to tell, among all other works a third party logister does, he should also be able to provide, information, that is real time inventory information, or they should have scanning capabilities. The data that they have should be very much accurate, that is to tell, they should maintain data accuracy. Their services should be such that which can be used over and over again, what we call as reliable services. We also do have, customized management reports should be there. The prices should be competitive enough. So what are the different areas that can be outsourced? Now whenever we speak about the areas of outsourcing, there are especially two major areas of outsourcing, that can be private fleets and which can be warehousing. Whenever we speak about the private fleet management, it can be contract maintenance, or what we can tell as the companies here, they simply contract with an outside maintenance shop to handle its fleet maintenance. Or we have full service leasing, where company leases the equipment maintenance and also reporting services. We have dedicated contract carriages. What happens here is that outside vendor providers or drivers equipment and management supervision, they do the work on the fleet operation. And we do also have logistic and strategic partnership, where company outsources its fleet operation, especially as a part of outsourcing, most of its logistic function. And definitely we have warehousing. Now when we speak about warehousing, now it can be, always said as a act of, storing goods that will be sold or distributed on a later date. So while a small home based business might be warehousing products in a separate room or basement or garage, larger business typically owner, they would rent space in a building that is specifically and especially designed only for storage. So this is outsourcing. Now if you open and see in your syllabus, you have outsourcing in your third chapter, in your second chapter, as well as fourth chapter. So when we have to speak about recent trends in outsourcing, What you speak is you keep the meaning as brief as possible, where you tell what outsourcing is and you speak about what are the trends that are happening in outsourcing. It is not that the syllabus is repetitive. Definitely, outsourcing is there in second chapter, third and fourth as well. So, third you spoke about outsourcing in detail. Here in the fourth chapter, when they have given outsourcing, you tell what are the recent trends that are or the recent changes that are happening in outsourcing. The next one is Comakership. So, what could be this co-makership? Now, remember this thing, this word might be a new one for you. Co-makership, it is the most developed form of relationship which can exist between a customer and a supplier. Now, this particular partnership or this particular relationship between them exist because of it might occur because excuse me. Yes, as I said, the co-makership, now it is one of the most developed form of relationship that exists between a customer and a supplier. Now this relationship or partnership that we are speaking of, now it shall be established especially with the purpose of managing products or managing process or to do a quality research or to do a better development. So the main objective here is to always to obtain a competitive advantage through synchronized supply and also assured quality of the services that are being provided. Now that customer supplier relationship that we spoke of. Now this relationship, it basically goes through four phases, that is conventional approach, or it goes through quality improvement, it goes through operational integration and strategical integration. Now before we see each one of that, this integration is nothing but combination of the two for the betterment. So first one we shall see conventional approach. Now conventional approach, as the name suggests, something established old and accepted well makes anything conventional. So here under conventional approach, now this is the initial phase of the relationship between the customer and supplier. So the customer, they give priority to the price, and the supplier, they only seek to supply a product with a low price. That is to tell, here under conventional approach, there are two parties, but the goal of two parties shall be different. That is, the customer, he shall always give priority to price, whereas the supplier, he only seeks to supply a product with a low price. Here, there can exist mistrust of quality. Then comes quality improvement. Here, when we compare the relation to that of conventional approach, there shall definitely be a more lasting relationship, and it is the co-maker's first stage, what we can call as. Here, the customer always gives priority to quality by eliminating suppliers who might not be having a better quality at their disposal. Then the third stage is operational integration. Now, compared to that of quality improvement, this stage is a step further in the co-maker relationship. Here, the customer gives priority to process control. So the supplier participation in the product design and common investment in research and development shall begin at this particular stage. Now customers, they can finance programs for suppliers to implement quality improvement system also. And the last stage that we can bifurcate is that of strategic integration. Now, strategic integration is basically a business partnership. Under this phase, there is a common management of process and procedures, and also there shall be a synchronized supply which shall always be assured with quality. So these are the four different phases. Now it would be helpful, it would be easier for you all to understand the definition of co-makership. So it is as simple as the fact that it is a relationship between buyer and supplier in supply chain who would be able to share information among each other regarding research and development, marketing and distribution. This is nothing but the co-makership. I'll repeat it once again. A relationship between buyer and supplier in a supply chain who share information among each other regarding research and development, marketing and distribution. So we shall now see the emergence of co-makership. Now, whatever this relationship that we are speaking of between the buyer and the supplier, definitely it shall come into existence only through the growing confidence that the customer shall have in the supplier's quality, or on the time arrival of parts at their agreed destination, which would be able to avoid unnecessary storage or any kind of shift towards supplier responsibility for quality. So suppliers, they deliver an added value to product development. So this is what has been said by Trent and Monska in the year 1999. So that basically means that supplier can be a great partner when it comes to cutting costs. Moreover, new products shall also be easier to fabricate. The next definition that we can take of is what has been given by Lee in the year 2004. So this person tells that since the beginning of the consumer market, the buying the products at lower cost is something which has always been one of the main focuses for the consumer. So it should be seen that suppliers shall always want to produce at the lowest possible cost, and to conduct these low prices, he says that suppliers will have to always consider economies of scale at the base. But then a disadvantage of economies of scale is that it is difficult for suppliers always to respond to unexpected changes that can happen in demand or the supply. So this is what Lee has said. So now here we can see that how co-makership can make a difference, especially when we speak about this collaboration or strategic integration that we spoke about. That is to tell, through this collaboration with the buyer and the supplier, the products can be made, which are fixed to the changed need of these consumers. And together, they can respond faster, and therefore they shall be able to create a competitive advantage compared to the competitors who do not or who might not cooperate with their suppliers. Now, if we take the words of Bevan, he has said that this Comakership that we are speaking, it will ensure that both the parties who are into this contract, they shall always work towards one common goal, and they shall work towards this common goal because it can cut back expenses when they are able to work together. That is, the buyer and supplier often learn from each other in the process. So, according to Bevan, there are three main causes which might be resulting in this co-makership. First is that there can be a great number of competitors in the market, or the market might be in a declining stage. And so, through this relationship with the supplier, customer can bring a competitive advantage. And secondly, through quality management projects and the need for communication, they shall always arise a demand to communicate with the supplier. And lastly, taking action is better than to react to others in the market. Now these things are said by. And finally, we shall see what has been said by Peterson, Handfield, and Gatz in the year 2005. See, these three discuss that the firms are seeking infinitely to cut costs in developer time and new products. And they also tell that they try to improve quality and also provide a smooth launch of new products. So now, according to the research that has been conducted by these three, when there is integration with material suppliers into new product development, it can achieve this above mentioned, could it be quality improvement or a smooth launch of the product. So the integration of the material supplier, it can be different in company. In some cases it will be fully integrated, while in some other it might be just be involved in research and development. So, suppliers may be involved in different stages of the organization. To give an example, they can be in coordination of process and supply chain design or product and process design. Now, it is simply to tell, in whichever factor the integration of the supplier is a success. It depends on the matter of when the supplier is integrated and what kind of responsibility these suppliers are having. Then we have advantages and disadvantages of co-makership. So now if we see about advantages, definitely we shall. First one is there is the benefit of quality, and there is a benefit of making supply chain more better. Then we can reduce the cycle time of this supply chain. We can increase the inventory turnover ratio. So inventory turnover ratio higher the better. That is to tell, inventory ratio speaks about how many times the inventory has to be replenished in an organization. And there is also the benefit of higher on time delivery rates. There shall be intangible and tangible investments because of this, and also there is a benefit of use of knowledge and the expertise of supplier. And speaking about disadvantage, there shall be search cost. That is to tell, yes, you might be ready for this partnership that you would want to have with your supplier or with your customer, so that it will be better for an organization. But to find the suitable partner who can bring in all these advantage, it shall always result in search cost. Not only search cost, once you are able to find these people, then definitely once you have to come up with the contract, you should always have this contracting cost. Now, contracting cost is nothing but the paperwork cost that you'll have to bear when you enter into such a contract. Then we do have monitoring cost, where you'll have to see to that either if at all you're the customer, you'll have to see to that your supplier is doing exactly what you wanted them to do. Then you have enforcement costs. Then, not only rather than telling it as disadvantage, we can tell it in the form of a risk. You should always have the risk of, losing the crucial information to the competitors. If at all tomorrow your partners become your rival, then definitely you would have shared very much valuable information already with this partner of yours, who today might turn into your rival. And also there is this drawback of co-mentorship, that most of the times only large organizations benefit from supplier integration, especially in the new product development. So
In this session, we shall see the role of e-commerce in the supply chain management. Now, you do all know what is e-commerce. So, now every business, it doesn't matter whether the business is large or whether the organization is small nowadays. Now, it shall definitely comprise a supply chain network. So, information technology, it has been utilized in various functions of supply chain in the past 3 to 4 decades in various activities of a business organization. And this information technology or IT, what we call as, it ensures supply chain to be agile and efficient by ensuring transparency, automation, and also faster communication with greater accuracy and also lesser defects. So, coordination of various activities across various stages is possible only through this information technology. Now, the supply chain functions, it has been greatly impacted by information technology, and their advances has happened due to many reasons. Some of could be like customer satisfaction is something which has become of utmost priority in today's world to all the businesses that are present, and there is undoubtedly a high level of competitive pressure. Not only there exists competitive pressure, the point that is to be noted that this competitive pressure is something which is ever increasing in nature. And also, with the internet of things, information has become very much crucial, and this information, it is something which helps in reducing manpower resources, and also it which helps in inventory levels. And also this information, it plays a very vital role in strategic planning and also the development of resources in the organization. So what could be the objectives, or what could be the main aim of information technology when it comes to supply chain management? If we have to speak about this, the objectives of STM could be, providing information. Now, when we tell providing information, it is not just as simple as information. You should always see to that this information there is availability and there is also visibility in the information that are being provided. Not only that, this information technology, it helps a lot better in what we can call a single point of contact of data. You need not go for different sources for different information. All the information that are necessary can be collected at one single point. And there can be decisions which are based on total supply chain information, or there can be collaboration with supply chain partners. So what could be the functional role of this information technology in supply chain management? Now, this functional role, it can be broadly classified into three different areas. The first one is transaction execution. The second one is planning, collaboration, and coordination. And finally, we have decision making. So these three are the main functional role of e-commerce in supply chain management. When we speak about transaction execution, this is to tell information technology at the base, it should support all transaction execution related activity so that they are performed smoothly and also with greater accuracy. Now the transaction execution role, it includes the information technology applications to improve the efficiency, especially of all the repetitive data, and also it helps to enhance information sharing among the supply chain stages. Now if we have to give example, we can give example of order processing, which is very much repetitive in nature, or the billing, or generating codes, or dispatching related details of all these things, or the delivery verification. All this makes the transaction execution. Then we have planning, collaboration and coordination. This is to tell, the information technology, it is used in supply chain management for planning, for coordination and also for collaborative activities. So this will always include, the sharing of information which is related to the demand, inventory and also production capacity with the channel partners so that joint decision making is possible. So order and shipment tracking are possible through coordination among partners, or enterprise resource planning that we spoke about, and we do have collaborating planning, especially one more we saw, that is Comakership, or we can have a CPFR, or what we call as collaborative planning, forecasting and replenishment. We have VMI, what we call as vendor management inventory. Now these are few of the technologies which provide scope for collaborative planning, excuse me, especially among the parties who are there in this supply chain management channel. And finally, we can see how IT is being involved in decision making. Now, this information technology is also used for decision making in the supply chain. It can be real-time data capturing and sharing. This real-time data capturing and sharing, it has enabled greater visibility. It also brought agility and real-time decision making using maybe artificial intelligence. It has brought machine learning. You have data analysis and also predictive analytical tools. So all this real-time sharing of information, it helps in reducing delays to a greater extent, and also it does improves accuracy of the work that is being done. Now, one more thing that we have to see is that how demand and supply act and interact along with information technology. Now, this demand and supply definitely is one part of the supply chain. Now, it is said that information technology, it not only support but also enhances both the demand and the supply side activities when it comes for supply chain. Because by using information technology, the coordination becomes much simpler. They shall be effective, not only effective, they shall always be effective and also reliable when you use information technology in demand and supply configuration. Now, this demand and supply and information, it can be seen in four different ways. The first one is
When we use information technology for external demand, that is to tell, all these techniques, it includes technologies which are helpful or which are involved in capturing the demand data from the end customer. Now, this includes technologies such as maybe POS data. What is POS data? POS is nothing but point of sale. All this information that you can collect at the end point where the product is finally being handed over to the customer. Or you have RFID, you have barcoding technology. Nowadays we have this QR code. Even that is nothing but the use of data through information technology. You have online customer search data and like. Now, if customer demand data is rightly captured and the same is shared without any distortion, as of that we spoke in bullwhip effect, then definitely the manufacturer would be able to match all these supplies efficiently. What happens in bullwhip effect? It simply says that how at the end customer where there was 1% demand, how did it increase to a lot more greater extent in the side of the manufacturer? That is called as bullwhip effect. Now, when we use IT for external demand, it is said that this bullwhip effect can be reduced to a great larger extent. And what happens when we use information technology for internal demand? Now here, the customer demand data, which is collected through various sources, stays with the marketing department of any organization. Now there shall be appropriate technologies are necessary to integrate the entire demand data and organize the same according to various criteria, such as might be priorities, product types, shelf life, or customer preferences, and as such. So these technologies would be helpful for planning and forecasting demand with a greater accuracy. Then we have information technology for internal supply. So here we can tell that the amount of information that is being very huge nowadays, or what we discussed in the recent trends, we named it as big data. So this big data or the amount of information which is huge through various sources, it calls for the necessity of coordination of information, especially within the company's internal department. And because of this, or this is where information technologies play a very vital role in coordinating information across sourcing, production, inventory, distribution, sales, and logistics, and also even finance functions. So technologies such as maybe internet or emails or even SMS or various application software, robotics we have BI or business intelligence, we have data analytics, we have sensors and also similar technology. Now they allow seamless coordination of information internally for enhancing the efficiency of supply chain. And nowadays even it has become easier with this barcode and this QR code. You need not even write, you need not even take count it manually. You just need to scan the barcode or your QR code. That is how easy information technology has made the business activities. Then we have information technology for external supply.
Now we accept it or not, we tell it or not, information technology, it definitely enables uninterrupted and also seamless connectivity with the suppliers spread across geographical locations. Now technologies such as electronic data interchange or EDI what we call, or enterprise resource planning or ERP, or hypertext markup language that we have HTML, or XML or what we can call as extensible markup language. We have, as I said earlier, VMI or vendor managed inventory. And even, all these web enabled portals, they always enable real time information sharing with the suppliers, which improve transparency and also reduce the cost of transaction. So, what could be the benefits of information technology? We saw how there is a link between e-commerce and SAM. Normally, when we speak about e-commerce and SAM, we are speaking about the information technology part of e-commerce or electronic commerce. So we saw the basic roles, how it is used in planning, collaboration, and coordination, or even in the decision making, and how it has helped in bringing the external demand or the demand and supply side. Now, speaking about benefit, yes, undoubtedly, when we speak about the supply chain, there is complexity. But despite its complexity, the supply chain ensures a competitive advantage to the organization. And information technology, when we are able to use this appropriately, it can minimize the complexities in the supply chain process and operations and contribute to the quantifiable benefits to the organization. Now, if we have to name each benefit, then definitely this information technology, it reduces uh, operating costs through efficient management of resources. There shall be improved efficiency, with real-time communication and joint decision making. There shall be reduced shortages and delays in supply chain process through integration and collaboration. Increase the supply chain profitability in specific, and business profitability shall be there when you consider the business as a whole. There shall be increased, supply chain network through all these collaborations in all the different stages. Now, this information technology in supply chain management, excuse me for that. Um, Now, this information technology in supply chain management, it normally brings huge transformation and also changes for the the excellence of any organization. So the result of information technology implementation in supply chain management, it cannot be understood or it cannot be said in one sitting or overnight. So, the outcome might normally vary based on the way it is implemented. So, the right use of information technology in supply chain management, which is combined with clear vision and implementation, will always enable the organization to be, futuristic and also sustainable. So, finally, we shall see supply chain management in e commerce. That is to tell, in the recent world or in the current times, there are different types of supply chain management.
Yes, there are different, but we shall concentrate on two. That is, there are two models. That is, one is drop shipping and another one is conventional mode. Now, when we tell about conventional mode, that is manufacturer to retailer or retailer to manufacturer to distributor and to the retailer. That is the conventional mode. So, what might be this drop shipping? Drop shipping is something that is emerging in the recent days. All of us we have experienced this. The name might be different, but when you hear the meaning of this drop shipping, you know that you have used this a lot. So right now the current trend is called as drop shipping. What is the current trend that is happening in e-commerce? Now here under current, drop shipping, they never maintain any inventory system in their place. That is, it would be easier if it is said with an example. See, I might be manufacturing a product. Now, if my product, I might be selling it through a e-commerce platform. When this is the case, I do not have to maintain any stock, but just that I have to display my product in the e-commerce platform or the platform in which I would be selling the product, maybe in a website. And whenever I get orders, I send the orders directly to manufacturer, and the manufacturer will supply the product to the customer. So in this model, drop shipping model, there is no inventory management for the e-retailer who is managing the website. Nowadays you might say, maybe in case of when you have bought a shoe from your friend over what they have might have displayed over their social medias, maybe WhatsApp, maybe Instagram or Facebook. You might have observed some of the people, they would continuously display some of the products, and you might have ordered that, you might have got the materials. So the person with whom you have ordered, they are called as e-retailers, and they would place the order with the manufacturer, and the manufacturer directly sends it to you. So here the e-retailer as a person need not maintain any inventory. There is no cost of maintaining inventory, plus there is also earnings from selling it. But then there is also disadvantage of it. The disadvantage of this drop shipping is that a lot of time, because of the difference in the information that is being passed, a lot of time what happens is that the dealer or the manufacturer, he might be running out of stock, but then there are chances that the e-retailer, he would be displaying the stocks as available, and the customers might be ordering the product, and the customer also will be able to place the order to the manufacturer. So, the manufacturer who is not having any stock would have received the order, and because of this, there are a lot of time a high rate of dissatisfaction from the side of the customer will have to be tolerated by the manufacturer. So that is the main disadvantage of this e-commerce. Then this is one drop shipping that we have. The other one is conventional model. What you have studied over the years, what you have understood over the years. That is where we have distributor versus the retailer. Now under this conventional model, it is still going well again, but
it has the same issue as the inventory management, like manufacturer versus the retailer, but it has the advantage that they will be connected and they will keep getting the updates from the manufacturer to the retailer every day, or their systems shall definitely be synced. So that are the two different types of supply chain management in e-commerce. The next one is green supply chain management. So this green or is this chemical free, all these things are the recent words that are being used in business a lot. So what could probably be this green supply chain management? Now, these green supply chains, they are supply chains wherein the upstream supply chain practices and downstream supply chain practices both aim at minimizing the environmental impact of both forward and reverse flow of materials or information and funds. So these green drivers, they are motivators that include business organization to adopt green supply chain practices. I'll repeat once again. Here under green supply chain management, both the forward flowing and the backward flowing of in the supply chain, they see to that there is very much less impact, that is negative impact that would be happening on the environment. So what you can see over the slide is some of the green supply chain drivers, or the people who can be a reason which would make the supply chains be more environmental friendly. So it starts with the customers. That is to tell the customers of today world, they have gone environmental friendly and they are always looking for green products, or what we can call as organic food products, or they see to that there is less use of plastic and there are biodegradable products usage more and more, or the less use of depleting natural and pollution inducing resources. So customers who support eco-friendly products and process are important drivers of green supply chain management practices. Then we have international markets. That is to tell corporates today, they are with international markets. Now either because the products are exported or because international brands are competitors for domestic brands. So the global requirements for eco-friendly products and practice drive green supply chain practices. Now, if we have to give some of the example, it could be air and water quality standards or e-waste management standards. Then we have government.
So here there are regulations and laws enforced by the government on on environmental damages or a renewable resource and dumping of products. All these have triggered organizations to follow green supply chain practices. Then we have competition on in the list. So when we're speaking of the competition, see, always this business what they can do is one of the strategy that they can use is that they can always show to the customer that they are a hand better than that of their customers. That is normally what they do. So this environmental friendly practices, you know, by the global competitors and also cost advantages due to maybe less wastage and recycling of resources. It has triggered green thinking in supply chain practices. And we have stakeholders and industrial groups. Here, demand and inducements from the community or industrial association or interest groups or even the non-governmental organizations or NGOs, what we call, and the management, motivate corporates always to follow, certain sustainable practices. So let us now see some of the green supply chain practices. Now, this supply chain management practices, it is separated across activities of inbound logistic operation, outbound logistics or marketing, and also after sales services. Now, in the list, what you can see is some of the green supply chain practices across all these activities. Uh, so when we tell green inbound practices, what could be here? Here normally there shall be profiling raw materials without environmentally hazardous substance, or the suppliers collaborations for environmental objectives can be there, or there shall be internal management coordination of suppliers, maybe especially through the environment audit, or the product shall be such that which qualifies the ISO 1401 certified suppliers and supply chain partners, or there shall be environmental friendly practices at all supplier tires that we studied. There can be training of suppliers on environmental practices. You have electronic information sharing with suppliers. There is localized sourcing. So these are some of the green inbound practices. Then we have green operational practices. Here we have things like products or services which are designed for reduced use of materials and also energy. Products shall be designed with features maybe such as what you have observed, maybe reuse, recycle or recovery. And we have product design which are in favor of environmental friendly material and process. Then we have process and products which comply with the environmental protection standards and regulation. There shall be reduced carbon emission in production process, or use of fuel efficient tools and machines, or optimized process of reduced waste. You have energy savings and resource optimization to save energy and resources. There shall be internal recycling of materials with the production, or quality assurance and ongoing assessment,
which will be able to measure green supply chain processes. Then we have green outbound logistics. Here there shall be, use of lesser and lesser or recyclable packaging materials is considered here, or reduced inventory and handling of products is considered here, or use of green warehouse techniques is done here. Then there shall be optimization of, the location of distribution hubs or order consolidation. Then we have reverse logistics. Under reverse logistics, we have recovery and reuse of used products. There is a reselling of the returned goods, uh, which can be done with in the condition, or remanufacturing. There can be refurbishing of the product or repacking of the returned goods, and they should be return the return goods to the supplier. Now, the implementation of green supply chain practice, it is normally a challenge to, to most organizations, and it requires the support of management and the customers. So this management, it supports green practices by ensuring, stakeholders commitment to environmental regulations and green practices, or there shall be cross functional collaboration for environment improvements, or implementation of total quality environment management, or eco labeling of the products. So the customers, they support all these green supply chain practices by collaborating with the suppliers to design, eco-friendly products or cleaning process or green packaging, recycling and reusing products. So the strategy, especially for the implementation of green supply management, could be to design and implement a very good environmental friendly practice, and by giving training and by conducting auditing across the supply chain, or with a continuous assessment of green supply chain practice to identify possibilities of internal recycling of materials, or implementation of green warehousing and the use of recycled packaging. And there shall be recovery and reuse of reused products, or the green supply chain practices are in practice. As you know, the consumers and corporates are very much towards go green. So these are quite a few things that we can discuss